Sadly, there are no shortages of Saudi stooges in the Islamic world, especially from India. Here we have one who alleges without evidence that the reason why the Taliban have changed is due to Salafi da'wah. This video will hopefully enlighten some of these beings to understand that reviving old ties between Saudi Arabia and the Taliban is highly unlikely. The Taliban and Saudi Arabia have worked together in the past. The relationship was firm, but today, Saudi Arabia and the Taliban are separated due to political and cultural differences. The Taliban's relationship with Saudi Arabia was important years ago, but the relationship isn't so special today. Back in history, it was the United States who blessed the relationship between them, which resulted in radicalization and turmoil, not just in the region, but across the globe.
We also have a history of kind of moving in and out of Pakistan. I mean, let's remember here, the people we are fighting today, we funded 20 years ago. And we did it because we were locked in this struggle with the Soviet Union. They invaded Afghanistan, and we did not want to see them control Central Asia. And we went to work. And it was President Reagan in partnership with the Congress, led by Democrats, who said, you know what, sounds like a pretty good idea. Let's deal with the ISI and the Pakistani military, and let's go recruit these mujahideen. And let's get some to come from Saudi Arabia and other places, importing their Wahhabi brand of Islam so that we can go beat the Soviet Union.
Saudis, for example, funded extremist religious schools known as madrasas. It was a deal between the United States and Saudi Arabia to keep the Soviets at bay. In the 1980s, when the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan, Saudi Arabia supported Afghan forces known as the Mujahideen. They did so with their allies, the United States, and back then, Pakistan. Apparently, the Americans were there to fight communism, and the Saudis were there to defend Islam. Pakistan joined in as there was intelligence around the Soviet possibly invading the Pakistani province of Baluchistan, seeking a warm water port in the Arabian Sea.
نحن صادقين فيما نقول والأموال وما الأموال كلها إذا كان في شيء وقف مع أنه أول يعني ما عندنا خبر إذا كان في شيء أما الصحف وما الصحف هذه عارفين انتم وحنا عارفين من يعني اللي وراها.
America and Saudi Arabia spent over $4 billion on anti-Soviet measures. Today, the Saudis have officially distanced themselves from their old allies, apart from the United States and of course Israel. And the distance between Saudi Arabia and the Taliban is pretty obvious. Initially, people thought Saudi Arabia was a potential mediator in negotiations between the Taliban and the ousted Afghan government. But the small country of Qatar took over the lead. Qatar has become the gateway for the Taliban to the world. And the Saudis are no fan of Qatar by any means, although Saudi Arabia and Qatar have moved towards restoring ties. Saudi Arabia is still suspicious of Qatar due to its friendly relations with Iran. In the future, if we see a Taliban government, they'll likely keep ties with Saudi Arabia. They'll have to, as they won't have that many friends. The United States has already said they don't intend to keep their embassy open in Afghanistan. A number of European countries have said they'll talk to Taliban but aren't prepared to recognize them as a legitimate government. So the Taliban will require more friends than ever before, especially with the economic crisis looming. Afghans right now pay surging prices for eggs and flour and stand in long lines at the bank. All this won't be too popular when the Taliban officially take over. However, Saudi Arabia won't be pumping any money in Afghanistan to promote Salafi Wahhabism, which is petrodollar Islam, because with the defeat of the United States in Afghanistan, the Americans are losing their appetite for war. Salafism was a tool to vilify Muslims, radicalize them, and give an excuse to the US to steal resources out there. And today, the game's changed with big boys like Russia and China in the picture, and they're already preparing in Afghanistan. And this is exactly why Saudi Arabia is moving away from Islam after using religion as a tool, and the proof is in the pudding. I'm not talking about the reforms of allowing women to drive and Saudi Arabia opening nightclubs out there whilst mosques are getting shut down. Saudi made a shocking decision to ban dawah without permission. If you don't know what dawah is inviting non-Muslims to Islam. Saudi promoted dawah globally, known as the Awakening Agenda, which resulted in extremism among Muslims in the West and the far right rising in Europe and elsewhere. Today, Saudi Arabia has ordered mosques to remove extremist literature from libraries and end inviting non-Muslims to Islam without permission. Minister of Islamic Affairs Sheikh Abdullah Latif Al-Sheikh issued directives to mosques across the kingdom, ordering them to review books in mosque libraries that call for extremism and partisanship. In a TV interview, the Saudi Crown Prince was being interviewed about the economic reforms in Saudi Arabia and his Vision 2030. The conversation quickly started to focus on religion, where the Saudi prince started to talk about hadiths, which are the sayings and doings of the Prophet, peace be upon him. Essentially, the Saudi prince was shifting the criteria by which hadiths are to be validated. And his example was not according to the reputation of a narrator such as Al-Bukhari or Al-Muslim, but according to the number of narrators. In other words, the more widespread a hadith, the more likely it's valid, which throws a lot of hadiths out the window. So you see folks, whilst the Taliban are trying their best to form some sort of Islamic government, the Saudis are doing the opposite. Mohammed bin Salman is trying to modernize his country, and the idea of being a more liberal and open Saudi Arabia is not in line with its support for the likes of Taliban in Afghanistan.
We protect Saudi Arabia. Would you say they're rich? And I love the king, King Solomon, but I said, King, we're protecting you. You might not be there for 2 weeks without us. You have to pay for your military. You have to pay.